Hey everyone, let me get Carla on here. Let's see. I have to go live with. Let's see here. Howdy, howdy everyone. I'm just pulling up Carla. I gotta find her in the list of people here. Oh, of course it's gonna make it hard for me to find her, isn't it? Oh, come on. How do you even spell Dermestidarium? She could have chosen an easier name, right? Oop. Hi all. Let me just do this real quick. I gotta invite Carla, D-E-R-M. I tell her to change the name of her business. Dermestidarium. Okay, where is she? There we are. Jeez. That's my hand. That's absolutely crazy. All right. Looks like Carla's joining. Hi, Carla.
Hi.
You need to shorten the name of your business. I was like typing it with my finger going, well, hello, and there's lots of
turn you up.
Just getting started. How's your day going?
Good. It's like 1,000,000 degrees in my shop right now, so forgive me if I'm like sweaty and don't make any sense.
It's all good. It's all good. Hopefully everything's otherwise good. And no, actually, I even, although it looks like, yeah, with my camera now, it cuts this off because we're in split mode.
Yeah, I can see it.
So everyone, Carla did this one. Ooh,
looks familiar.
Yeah, and then I was trying to decide which scotch to drink, so I was still like deciding between the Lagavulin or the Ardbeg. I mean, skulls and scotch.
Oh wow, fancy.
I'm thinking I'm gonna go with the Ardbeg. I don't know. Maybe the crowd
can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. How about me?
It's a little quiet on my end, but it's probably just my phone. So not much you can do. I'm gonna close the door.
Or no, it also turn up. Do that. There, I'll turn up the volume, see if that helps. I also put on a headset. I just generally don't. But all right, let's see. Okay. Well, I'm gonna grab myself. All right. Who wants to see here? Raise a hand if you think I should drink the Lagavulin. Is anyone gonna raise their hand? Oh no, there's a vote for Lagavulin already. All right, Lagavulin wins. I got the. I do like it. It's a 16-year.
Fancy.
Pardon?
Fancy. I just went with like cheap bourbon and orange juice and soda. So it's just kind of like craniums and cocktails.
Fancy is not required, but I figure at a certain age, life's too short for cheap liquor.
Fair enough. And I'm double fisting it with water because it's hot.
Oh no, I got a big chunk of ice in there. There's no way I would drink that straight. I have to work tomorrow.
That chunk of ice will hydrate you for sure.
Yeah. Well, obviously everyone's jumping in now, and that's great. And it's after 6, and hopefully everyone's aware that this is the next installment. Let me just turn this a little bit. There we go. The next installment of the Oregon BHA Instagram Pint Nights, and we're just so glad that everyone can join us. Actually, I'm going to click on my laptop here too, so I can join the chat this way as well. And that way, what I'll do, Carla, is as questions come in, let me mute it. There, I will jot them down so we don't have to try and chase them on the phone. So I have my laptop up here that I can write down questions. And someone says ice makes it a mixed drink. No, that's not true. I will disagree with you vehemently. This is way too strong to drink straight. Besides, most people who I know from Scotland who make whiskey say you should give it a touch of water or a touch of ice. So
that's also what I heard when I was in Scotland. I can confirm.
So, but at any rate, back to what I was before I was off topic, which I never do. Yeah, so this is our third of our Instagram Pint Nights, our kind of learn at homes or our get to know each other at homes, and I hope everyone's staying safe and well. And Carla generously said she'd be happy to come on and chat a bit about her background and kind of where she came from and where she's going and all the things. And as I showed, she does some pretty cool work on skulls. So we have skulls, we have scotch, And if you don't know Carla, I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk about her in her own words.
Yeah, so I'm Carla. I'm the owner of a business called Dermestidarium. So I am a professional skull cleaner, bone cleaner. I clean a lot more than skulls. You can kind of see, there's one there. That little tiny thing is my first year. So only the biggest trophies, obviously, in my shop. And it's really cool to be here. I've been a member of BHA since actually before I started hunting. So what's that, probably like 6 years, because I'm actually pretty new to hunting. And I used to be, very, very long ago, a vegan animal rights activist. So I'm not exactly the traditional demographic who you think is going to turn out to be an adult hunter. So yeah, I'm like, wow, where do I even begin, Joel? Well,
so why?
And sorry, one important thing. We need to set some ground rules for when I get to drink.
Well, I leave that up to you or the audience. I mean, you guys can either you can choose a word that we drink on, or sometimes we let the audience choose. But I'm just the MC. You guys make the choices on that.
I mean, it's fine. I'm just drinking anyway. So.
You could also just drink whenever you feel like it, but the audience can chime in whenever they feel like we should take a drink. And so far they're not, but I'm sure they'll figure it out, or we'll just drink as we go, which is perfectly fine.
Sounds good to me.
So what I was going to say is, I mean, I think a lot of people would find it really interesting as to, well, first off, well, it looks like the word for drinking may be skull. So every time you say skull, or
fair enough.
That'll work. So, I mean, I know you obviously you were a vegan, and you even were a vegan activist. I mean,
yeah,
if you can give
sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you. So I think when a lot of people hear, oh, she was a vegan, they're like, well, yeah, she probably just ate weird foods and like that was it. But like I was the vegan. Like I was the annoying person who was like couldn't stop talking about it. And I was not just an animal rights activist. I actually worked full time for an internet animal rights organization who will go unnamed, but it was not PETA. I even then didn't really like PETA. So it was like kind of a lifestyle for me more than just a diet. You know, I was the kind of vegan who like didn't wear fur, obviously, but like leather. There was a brief period of time where I boycotted sugar because it's refined through some kind of animal product. So I took it to a pretty significant extreme. So a lot of people, I gave a TED Talk last year and talked about my transition from veganism to being a hunter and somebody who raises their own food and works in the taxidermy and hunting industry. And I got a lot of like, well, she was never vegan, like she probably just was it for like health reasons. But like, no, let me tell you, I was like a hardcore animal rights activist, hunter's worst nightmare.
So in a truncated version, and I was going to ask you this, is how did that come about? I mean, you didn't just one day fall and become a hardcore vegan and vegan activist, obviously. There was a transition to that. And then if you could describe what caused the transition away from that, I think people would find that really interesting. Yeah,
so I became vegetarian when I was probably 14 or 15. And I used to live in San Francisco, and we were like walking around downtown and like saw a big anti-fur protest, and it was from PETA, and they had all these people out there with these like pictures of animals that were you're a little bit blurry looking all of a sudden. So they had like all of this stuff, showing how these animals are like horribly mistreated for fur, and I kind of feel like the animal rights movement has some gateway issues, and fur and trapping are two of the biggest gateway issues that they focus on because it's just the easiest. And like, what are you going to say when somebody shows you all of these like graphic images? And the whole point of it is to make, an accessory. It's easy to understand why somebody would have strong feelings about that, and maybe you don't agree with it. And then they're like, and if you don't like fur, let me tell you about meat. And so it kind of snowballs. Once you get involved with one thing, you start learning more and more. And I learned a lot about factory farms that I will give my, past some credit for shaping my life now, because the things I learned about factory farms are, I still don't like factory farms. I still would rather not go to Safeway and buy factory farmed meat. I still want, it's funny because everybody's like, oh, you totally changed and you're, total hypocrite now. But I actually feel like my core values never changed. My vegetarianism and veganism and animal rights work stemmed from the fact that I really care about animals. I want them to be treated well. And I don't feel like unnecessary pain is okay to cause them. Well, I still feel that way, but now I responsibly raise my own food and I hunt and I work in an industry that works with fur. Like I have a fur sewing machine upstairs. But I now believe that you can care about animals. You can care about them a lot and want them to be treated respectfully and fairly and still be a hunter, and you can still consume ethical animal products.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good
just
point.
because I want to take a drink.
Yeah, no worries. And I think you bring up a really good point there, and something that hopefully a lot of the people watching can relate to is that the misnomer, of course, about hunters being that they don't care about animals, when in fact that's the furthest from the truth. And I get the allure of shaking a finger and the ability to say, hey, I don't take any part in it, which of course isn't quite true either, as you know. But yeah, well, that's interesting. So what happened to have you fall off the vegan wagon?
Oh man, I mean, it's the way I summed it up in my TED Talk, because it was a very short time period, was I used to work in journalism, and I was doing a story. I was an animal rights activist. I was always the one who tried to pick up the stories about animal welfare issues. I was doing a story about a woman who rescued a bunch of factory farmed egg-laying chickens. So she was helped with an organization to get all these birds out of the factory farm into her home. And they came, with all kinds of health issues because they'd been crammed into little cages and they basically had never seen the light of day. So all of a sudden, I think she had like some 50 birds. And then she just kind of got stuck with that. She offered to take them all in. I don't think she really understood what she was getting into there. So she ended up selling some of their eggs at the farmer's market to raise money to pay for their vet bills and for their feed and to basically support their newfound retirement lifestyle. But still lay eggs. There are some people out in the world who don't understand that chickens will lay eggs whether you want them to or not. They just do. So she also had all these eggs laying around. She started selling them. She started marketing them specifically to animal rights activists and vegans and people who cared about animal welfare, because could you get more ethical than a factory farmed bird who is saved from the factory farm and is now giving this like beautiful plush lifestyle? Like, explain to me how that's unethical. And so I ended up buying some of her eggs just kind of out of curiosity. And it was the first time since I had become a vegan that I saw, I kind of acknowledged the gray area existed of animal products. Animal products don't always equal evil. So it was from there that I kind of used that as a way to change my perspective and to open myself up to other types of animal production that weren't necessarily, that they were in those gray areas where it can be ethical and it can still result in the product. And I think it took a while before I went from the free range eggs to buying my first piece of bacon, but it happened eventually. And then from there, from kind of exploring the humane meat resources that were available to me, and I did live in a big city, so I did have some really nice boutique markets that had these golden pigs available for God knows how much a pound. It was very expensive to buy these nice meat products, but it was worth it to me because I was like, I'm supporting. If we want animals to be raised responsibly, you got to support the farmers who are doing it. You can't, just be vegetarian and expect people to raise humane meat when the farmers who are raising it need to make a living. So, yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a long but very thoughtful process into deciding who I wanted to support and what kind of food I really wanted to be consuming.
You have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask now, just because I think they're germane to what you're talking about, and then I definitely though want to continue on into how this transitioned into hunting, because that's a whole nother thing. Obviously, I know that you have raised your own animals and slaughtered them and things of that nature. But first, someone who has their ID is I'll pull it back up, is hunter gatherer farmer or something or other. It just went by. He wanted to know how. He wanted to know how your old circle. He says, if you talk to people from your old circle, how is your new perspective received? And that's a really interesting thought, because I know at your TED Talk you had a couple of protesters.
I did. I had my very own animal rights protest. Like, that was like, how could you come more full circle in life from being an animal rights protester and then getting protested by animal rights activists? It was amazing.
So do you get to talk to any of the people you used to affiliate with, or is that now unfortunately a closed door?
Well, you find out who your friends are when you change your diet and they never want to speak to you again. So I found out who a lot of my friends were and were not. I have a couple of people who I'm still Facebook friends with who are still very strictly vegan, and I have no problem with them. Like, they're still doing some other activism that I think is wonderful. They're still nice people. They've never had it out with me or anything. I think there have been people who've been a little confused about my decisions, but I hope that seeing that it's a possibility helps them to maybe open their mind a little bit. And I do still have some really good friends who are vegetarian and vegan, and those are the kind of people you want around who, care about you and see your core values regardless of the way you choose to enact them.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I definitely have friends who are vegan, and I know for those that are watching, if you haven't, you can find the YouTube. There's a discussion with Stephen Ranella where he talked with a vegan, and he even says he'd rather talk with a vegan than some of these kind of in-between vegetarians, because he says that person's holding true to their principles, and he can really respect that. So, I mean, yeah, I think that there is it's odd to say that there's a common ground, but in some ways there is. So I think that's really cool. So, but actually, my friend Brian, he must have come into the conversation late because his only question was golden pigs, ? So that's don't mind. He's catching up.
It's kind of a reference to a farm in the Bay Area from way back in the day that is sold. They raise these like very heritage, like very fancy pigs and sold them for the matching price. And the farm kind of circle was like, those are the golden pigs. So
perfect. There you go, Brian. And I mean, again, I kind of want to transition from this because while I think we could spend, in my opinion, an hour or two, just talking about your transition from vegan to omnivore, which I think is really amazing that you made that conscious choice. I think a lot of people go through various conscious decisions when they're discussing their diets or becoming a hunter or whatever. So because it's a big step to go from eating meat to killing your own animal. That's a big step. What prompted you, and what was it like?
Well, so the first animal that I ever participated in the full slaughter butchering process was a full-grown steer, and I don't recommend that as like an intro animal to others, but it was a real learning experience. So I was very happy to be the newly found meat eater who spends an exorbitant amount of money on a very small amount of meat. I was happy with it. I also was really getting into learning how to be more self-sufficient, and I'm just the kind of person that when I start getting interested in something and it starts kind of drawing me in, I get really into it, and I just want to know everything about it. Like, I'm not happy to like have a superficial understanding of something. If I'm really into it, I want to get my hands dirty. I want to know everything. So I was like, well, if I'm gonna eat these animals, I should visit some farms, and I met some farmers and met some people who kept animals. You know, we even had an urban agriculture alliance in San Francisco where people kept all kinds of critters in the city. And then I was like, well, I need to go out to the farms that are like actually producing stuff, and you know, the country farms, get out of the city. So I quit my day job, which is probably more money than I'll ever make again. And I went out of state and stayed. I spent probably a solid 2 years traveling from farm to farm and learning animal husbandry and gardening and just getting to know the families who are creating these foods. And it was really amazing. And of course, you know, the first farm I get to, it's just way out in the middle of rural New Mexico. And I'm there for like a couple of months, I think. And the last week, they're like, oh, we have to slaughter this deer. And I was like, oh, I have to see this. Like, I'm really uncomfortable. I don't know like what it's going to be like, but I have to, you know, I can't eat really good quality beef if I'm not willing to be part of it. So they did a great job. They shot it exactly as they should. The animal felt no pain. He died literally with food in his mouth. And then began the learning experience for all of us, because it turned out they had also never done this. This was like their farm steer. So it was insane. I spent like 6 hours helping them skin and quarter this amazingly huge animal. And I thought at first, like, I'm gonna not be comfortable with this. And as soon as I got in there, I was like, this is fine. I mean, you have to understand, I worked in the veterinary industry for years at this point, and so it was like, how is it different than doing surgery? Now the animal is deceased, it's not feeling any pain. Like, get in there and skin it. Find the meat.
Yeah, and that's a big animal to start with. I agree. When I first was getting into big game hunting, I had an opportunity to do a alpaca at a CSA. And fortunately did not have to do that, actually. I ended up getting my first very, very, very small buck that year. Small enough that I could kind of wear him like a backpack and haul him out. And so that was a little easier to manage than doing a whole alpaca, thank goodness, because I'm not sure how I would have liked walking up to an alpaca with a handgun and shooting it in the head, but that's what they do. I mean, it's quick, but that would have been a rough first experience, I think. So, well, what was your first, so you traveled around and you got all these farms though, but so what was your first hunting experience? I mean, did you have a mentor? Did you just start on your own? Did you just like watch YouTube and then jump in the woods with a shotgun? I mean, what did you do? I think people would want to know.
Like, it was actually raising animals, it was 100% easier than learning how to hunt. And it's funny because I've been doing European mounts longer than I've been a hunter. And so I got kind of lucky, considering I was starting to, I was doing this business. I ended up making some friends who are hunters, obviously, and they were really kind and gave me some advice. And if not, just the support. Like I said, I joined BHA before I even started learning how to hunt, and met some people and became kind of Facebook friends with folks who were, super supportive. I think the emotional support in beginning hunting as an adult is pretty important, because I didn't have any friends who hunted. I don't come from a hunting family. I barely knew people who shoot guns. So I felt like there were so many things that I had to to learn and fears to conquer. And it was a long, it's still a process. I will probably go to the grave not feeling like I was quite the hunter I could still be. But there are a lot of stumbling blocks for learning to hunt as an adult, especially when you don't have a hunter support network. So all the people who ever were like nice to me and encouraging were very, very much a part of it. And then eventually I did go out and hunt by myself. I had a friend help me zero in my rifle, and I went out, and I think I saw a couple of deer, but I never got a shot. It felt totally, it was not a great hunting first experience, but the thing was I loved it. I never got the exhilaration of this could be the moment, but I also spent a lot of beautiful sunrises, watching animals come out. I got bluff charged by a skunk, and that was kind of neat. It was just a different way. I always have loved being in nature. I kayak, I hike, I do all the things, but hunting I've never just gone out into nature and just sat there quietly. And that was a really cool and different experience. And that's, a like I will always say, like, there's no such thing as an unsuccessful hunt, because you go out there and you spend time in the woods and you're learning stuff and you're seeing animals and you're seeing wildlife, and that's sometimes the best part.
Here's a question. This is a good one too. I was going to break a different direction, but I like this question by John. It says, how did you feel about firearms before hunting? That's a good one.
That's a good question. So I didn't grow up in a big firearm household, but we did have guns in our house. The rifle that I still hunt with is my family. So it's not like I ever had like a really strong anti-gun feeling. It was just kind of like I just didn't know anybody who shot and felt really comfortable with firearms. Like, my mom's the kind of person who's like, you just keep the shotgun in the gun safe and then you rack it and the intruder leaves. I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, she's probably not wrong.
So, you know, we're kind of like a casual relationship with firearms where we weren't opposed to them, but we weren't, you know, super into them. So getting confident enough to take a shot at a living animal definitely took some work and some practice, and that was, and you know, it wasn't the worst stumbling block. I think for me it was just the enormitude of all the things you kind of had to figure out to go out in the woods and be successful. But I could totally see that that's a big factor with hunter recruitment for adults in general, because there are a lot of people who would probably feel good about hunting but don't have background in firearms and don't have, you know, that level of comfort. They might even have some negative feelings about guns that they need to work through. So definitely something that I think people, you know, it's a stumbling block for sure.
Yeah, let me just check on one thing here. It looks like on my laptop we were kind of cutting in and out. If anyone sees us cutting in and out, just let us know, send a little message, because on my phone it looks fine, but my laptop, it froze for a second. So no, I think that's super fascinating. And one thing I was going to ask about, and so I think John's question actually, and your answer to that transition to that well, is do you, or I should say, I'm sure you remember, but what was your feeling the first time you had a successful hunt? Maybe you can just tell us briefly about that. I mean, I know that's a very long thing that someone can dive into, but yeah, if you have the cliff notes.
Yeah, it was.
One moment, Carla. I do see someone says, I can't see Carla. Hopefully they can hear you. I can see you just fine. So
that's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Well, hi, Mom. But Mom,
I didn't even know you had Instagram.
I can see Carla just fine, Carla's mom. So I'm guessing that others can. But if there's any issues, just put them in the chat window, and I can kind of try and fix them as we go. But yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about your first successful big game hunt, and then I see a few questions we can go over as well. And she says, hi, sweetie, I see. So that's from your mother, not me.
Hi. Yeah, it was so surreal. Like, I think so the first successful hunt that I ever went on was not like a super traditional backwoods hunt, but it was an LOP tag. So it was antlerless, and a really wonderful client turned friend of mine took me out in the woods, and he helped me get the tag. He helped drive me around and find animals. And we were out there, it was snowing, because I think it was like February or something. And I had just kind of told myself, like, we're not going to get, like, this isn't going to happen. Like, there was even one time we pulled over and I almost had a shot, but there was another animal behind it, so I couldn't take it. And I almost felt relieved that I didn't have to, because I was so nervous about taking the shot. And then one day we were just driving around, we like pull over, there was like about 120 yards out, an antlerless deer. And I swear to God, I don't have any memory of even taking the shot. I'm so full of adrenaline. I just remember the moment where I like looked away, like I shot and I looked out from my scope and I was like, where'd the deer go? And we ended up just kind of like scouting all over looking for it. And it didn't go 5 feet from where I shot it. Like, it was a great shot. I felt really proud of myself. I thought I was going to cry a little bit. Like, I was like, well, and I didn't. I felt really glad about that. Like, the truth is, when I saw the animal laying there, I was like, okay, now it's time to get to work.
Yeah, it is. I do find it interesting. We always say, now it's time to get to work. But I always kind of laugh because like somehow all the hiking and scouting and glassing aren't work, but they're just a different work. So yeah, well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting that you don't remember it because I will say I'm sure every hunter is different. Like I can remember, it feels like every second was a minute and a half of my, and I'm not lying. I can remember every just like click, like every moment of my first hunt. I still can literally recall to the finest detail, to the wind, to the smell, to every single minute. So it's, but again, everyone's different on how it happens for them and how it, and exactly how that goes. So there were a couple of great questions to kind of follow up to that. Let me go all the way back up because there was a few. So here's someone said, I'm an archery hunter. Coming from the vegan perspective, how is rifle versus archery viewed in terms of being humane? And I'm guessing they don't like any of it, but that's a good question. That's a good question because I do find that people, for some reason, romanticize archery and say, oh, it's more humane. And I always think, you do realize it runs off with the arrow. So anyway, I'll let you follow up.
So I'm not an archery hunter yet. I do have a longbow that I'm working on, trying to get proficient with. I kind of feel like with archery, I want to be like traditional or best just because I feel really good about rifle shooting. And I feel like with archery, this is kind of more like a challenge, like a personal challenge. And I want to make it as hard as possible because I like that kind of thing. I think if you asked any vegan, they would probably say, well, like what you said, everything's terrible. But I do remember, this was back many years ago, oftentimes they were particularly focused on archery as being inhumane because of, you know, a little bit more of a margin for error. And I've never actually seen any statistics that show non-fatal shots are more common or not with archery. I feel like, you know, everybody's personal ethics and morals are really matter. And what all that matters at the end of the day is you feel confident with the shot you're taking, whether it's, you know, a rifle at 600 yards or a traditional longbow at 15. You know, it's, if you feel like you're going to take a shot and not miss and you feel proficient, you're doing it ethically in my book.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's really well put. We have someone who's volunteering to take you archery hunting, by the way. They say they think you would fit in with their group. So another question was, I thought this was also really, so I mean, obviously you've been a vegan, and the lack of a better phrase is the elephant in the room is that you're a woman. And obviously women are the fastest growing segment of hunters, but we did have a question, and someone said, did you ever feel a barrier of entry to hunting being a woman? And that's a great question.
It is, and it's hard because it was so new to me in general that I felt like everything was a barrier for entry, from, you know, figuring out how to shoot to figuring out where the land I could access was. I think the times that I have felt most aware of my gender were the times I would go into like meetings or social events for hunters, and I feel like I'm, you know, 20 years younger and a different gender than everyone else in the room. I never felt like anyone treated me any different, though. I've actually, you know, I wished I had more female friends who were hunters, and I definitely see the demographics. I mean, there's, you know, the demographics we know from 2016 when we did that big survey. I think it was like 1% of hunters are female or something to that effect. So it's definitely less common to find fellow hunters who are female. I didn't really necessarily feel like it made it that much harder. The thing that I think is a little bit, it just depends how you hunt. I like to go way the hell out by myself into the backcountry, and then you feel a little bit aware of being a woman, because if you run into other people, you hope they're really good people. 99% of the time they are. That, you know, 1% of the time some dude rolls up on you and looks at you like you're prey, and that sucks. And those people can ruin it for women. So I always carry a sidearm when I'm out. I always, you know, feel like it's important for self-defense skills to come in addition to going out into the backcountry. But I've never let it stop me, and I hope that if I could do anything to make any other woman feel more comfortable out in the woods, I'll do it.
That's a great answer, and it actually transitions well into a couple other kind of points on that, and I appreciate that answer too. But I guess my question would be is, do you have an opinion? This is my question. Do you have an opinion why you don't see more female hunters? I know that's very opinion-based, but...
I do have opinions on that, and it goes to a deeper issue with, I think, hunter recruitment. And, you know, I noticed when you were talking about this Pint night, you referred to me as an adult onset hunter, which is funny because I think we all know it kind of sounds like a disease, but I also...
I wear that badge proudly. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been written up in a magazine for that, and I still show people the magazine. I'm like, look at me.
Well, the thing is, you always, you know, I've learned so many things as an adult. Like, I'm a farmer, I'm, you know, raised livestock, a gardener. Like, nobody's ever called me an adult onset, like literally anything else. So I think to unpack that term a little bit, when we say adult onset hunter, we're implying that that's the less common route, which to me says most people are coming into hunting through their families. And, you know, it means that we're missing a huge part of the population who have the resources and the autonomy to learn a new skill, but for some reason they're not doing it. And, you know, I'm a hunter's ed instructor, and this is my first year doing it, so I haven't been to that many classes, but it's mostly kids, and that's awesome, and we need to keep those kids, you know, who come from hunting families or who just really want to hunt. We got to give them the ability to do it, but something is preventing adults from coming in. And I think if people felt more comfortable as adults learning how to hunt, we would get more women, because I think they're definitely interested in it. But there's some, you know, they're afraid to pull the trigger to make a bad pun.
It's a good pun. I like it. Yeah, and that actually leads me into kind of the second part I was going to go on. That is, I know that you're a hunter ed instructor, as am I, and everyone I think has a personal reason as to why they became a hunter ed instructor. And obviously, as your background has transitioned, maybe you can kind of talk about why you decided to go that route and what you thought you could do as a hunter ed instructor, especially as perhaps a woman hunter ed instructor.
Yeah, mostly I just look back at where I was a couple of years ago and ask what I wish I had. So to be totally honest, I never took the hunter's ed class, partly because I felt like I'd be the only adult there learning how to hunt, and I would probably be right. So, you know, I'm also the kind of person who likes to learn things the hard way, of course, and, you know, if I am totally used to learning things on my own, so it felt kind of natural to just kind of figure out hunting as I went and like find people and resources and network as I could. But yeah, I just want to make it easier for people who are interested in it. And, you know, even if people, adults or kids or whoever, they just figure out what hunting means, they go out in the woods once or twice and they hate it, at least they did it, and they're going to leave that with hopefully a good perspective of hunters and a good opinion of what hunting means. Because I feel like if just everybody in the world like just went on one hunt, they would have a much higher opinion of hunters than they otherwise would, even if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I agree. I think that, you know, we all need to sample the things that we maybe don't understand so well. And you know, I find it really fascinating. I'm hopeful that everyone else does too, that you had a business based around hunting before you actually were even really hunting, which is fascinating. And obviously that's going to give you some insight that maybe someone else doesn't have who's outside of that industry, of course. I don't know that I have ever asked you this before, even though I've chatted with you. And again, it could be a deep topic, so I'm trying to keep it somewhat surface for limited time. When did you decide to start that business? Like, I mean, of all things to do, to say, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take skulls and I'm going to with a beetle, I'm going to Euro them, and then I'm going to paint them or bronze them. I mean, people may not be able to tell because the sunlight's not on this, but it's both bronze and green and blue, and it's one of my favorite things around my house.
Yeah, it actually started, that was a byproduct of farming more than hunting, and it kind of worked out that it helped me get into hunting too. But I used to, back in the day, I worked on a goat meat ranch, and we were slaughtering a bunch of the old bucks who just had these like beautiful like curled horns, and it just like some little part of me was like, wouldn't their skull be cool? And so I made this huge like cage so that like ants and bugs and vultures could get to them, and was like, well, you know, I'll clean the skull. I don't do it like that anymore, guys, but it did work eventually. It took like, I think many months, and then I like finally went back and checked on them, and they were like super like out of a horror movie. But it was kind of one of those things where it was like, it's a cool byproduct of farming, and I love the look of the skulls. You can learn a lot about an animal from their skulls and their teeth, and you see like their scars and, you know, the things that they've, you know, healed from. It's just really fascinating. I find, and, you know, like I said, I have a background in the vet industry, and I just find animal anatomy really interesting. So as I continued to farm and raise livestock, it was always kind of like, well, just clean their skull, you know, why not? And then one day I was like, you know, I'm going to get those beetles I've heard about. And then here I am, you know, probably a decade later with hundreds of thousands of flesh-eating beetles and an entire business where mostly I clean skulls.
I was going to ask you.
It just kind of made itself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the last time I was down visiting how many beetles you had, because I know you do. You've done like moose and things. And I was thinking that must take so many bugs. And I mean, I assume they have a short lifespan as well, which means you have to have some way to get more beetles, whether it's through procreation that you're doing or that you're buying. But oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're perfectly capable of procreating on their own. I have bought beetles literally one time, and I still have. I mean, they're probably like super inbred at this point, but there's so many of them. Who cares? They're doing their job.
That's awesome.
Do people want to see them? Because I have a little.
I think people would love it. Yeah, let's see what you got. I mean, I know what they look like.
Sample colony.
I've looked at your website, but a lot of
trigger
people.
warning. This is gross, but here they are falling off of a duck.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're very innocent looking little beetles. They have larvae that look like little caterpillars. And they don't smell great, but they're very cool. We've become a great team.
I have someone asking. I assume it's somewhat of a joke. They're saying, "Are flesh-eating beetles a good home defense pet like a dog?" I'm getting my power cord. 1 second.
I do not rely on the beetles for self-protection. I feel like the best way, you know, to avoid anybody trying to break into your house or to like mess with you is just make it known that you even have flesh-eating beetles, because nobody wants to mess with you.
I think that would be a deterrent for most people. Sorry, I had to plug in the phone. It was running low on battery, and I didn't want suddenly to have us just end our chat just because I ran out of power. So I apologize for the ceiling shot there for everyone, and anyone watching the recording probably saw the antlers on my other buck. But yeah, and one of my friends says you're a proud beetle mama. That's cute. Okay, well, when it comes to beetles, that's such a proud thing. I did want to scroll back up because there was a question that I've been kind of making sure I keep on the radar here, and we only have about 15 minutes left. Is that, and this is a really good question as well, because I think that, how do I phrase this without asserting too much opinion? Every hunter has their own interactions with the public and with other people, and I think male reactions and female reactions can be very different. So this person had asked, okay, I keep scrolling up. They say, often I see partisan attack from hunters, so actually from the hunting community, towards non-hunters, especially starting with, and they kind of use a derogatory term towards the liberal class. What advice do you give to hunters to improve those communications in the future? And that's a really awesome question.
It is, yeah, man, that's a big one. I mean, the thing is with any big group, everybody's an individual, and you can't control what every hunter is going to say or what their opinions are going to be. I feel like the best we can do is to try to educate people that when you are a hunter, you're we're such a small part of the population that each of us meeting new people who aren't familiar with hunting, we're kind of an ambassador, whether we like it or not. And it is not always fun to be that ambassador. It doesn't always feel comfortable. But if you're the only hunter this person's likely to meet, I feel like it will benefit everyone if we are the polite, respectable people who leave them with a good impression of hunting. And I have had protested. I mean, like, people disagree with me all the time. And I feel like there are some people who are just so close-minded and rude that I won't waste my time talking to them. But if anyone, vegan, animal rights activists, or otherwise, wants to actually have a civil conversation about our disagreements, I always welcome that, and I'll always be polite, and I'll always be as respectful as I can, because we can still disagree and leave feeling better about each other. I feel like the last thing we want to do with hunting, if we want hunting to be successful in the future, considering it's such a small percentage of the population as it is now, is to make it a partisan issue, because hunting's for everyone. Hunting is a human sport that our humanity literally is evolved from. Every person, no matter what culture, no matter what your skin color, what your gender, or other, anything, we all have a legacy of hunting because we're humans. So that's part of our evolutionary history. And I just feel like, well, now I've lost my track of thought, but.
No, I think that was really well said. I actually jotted down a quick follow-up to that was, and this is just a personal thought, was that do you think that your experience and background, having gone from someone who was in a family that didn't hunt to a vegan activist to a business based around hunting to a hunter, do you think that gives you a broader or more unique insight maybe than someone who just grew up in a family that's what they do? And I would expect that the answer to that is yes, but again, I want that from your words, not my assumption.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a pretty different perspective on hunting, having come to it from such a very convoluted path. I honestly, I can't even begin to relate to the people who have grown up hunting. I'm so jealous of them, because I just wish that I had started so much younger, and I wish somebody explained the point system to me when I was like 12. But, and maybe because of my circle of friends who are mostly non-hunters, I've got a lot of really liberal friends who, since I've started hunting and since we've had some really open conversations about hunting and firearms, I think we both realize we're more open-minded than we thought. Like, I've had some people who have asked me to take them shooting or expressed interest in learning how to hunt, who I would have never ever thought I would ever hear that from. So you can't ever assume that because someone is like this, then they're not going to want that. I think, as many people as we can create a good impression of hunting for, we're going to be able to help get more interest in it.
Do those people you mentioned who have gone shooting and hunting with you, did they bring it up to you because you hunt, or were you like chatting with them, or did you feed them, or what generated that interest? I think people would want to know so that they can help as well and do that as well, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I really love hunting, and I'm really excited about it. And I feel like any dinner guest at our house is going to end up eating wild game and hearing about it. So that has been a lot of the motivation for people to start talking to me about maybe their interest in it or just their opinions about it. A really sweet friend of mine who is mostly vegetarian, really, she's like ultimate cat lady, total sweetheart. Not the kind of person you would ever think would be open-minded to hunters. She told me that before she met me, she thought hunters were like villains, like Disney villains. And now she's like, I actually think that you're really not. Like, you're like actually helping animals, and you're doing things in this really nice, thoughtful, ethical way. And she ate cougar with me. So I feel like that was a pretty good victory.
What did you and what did she think of the meat?
She loved it. Yeah, I mean, I've never shot a cougar, so it was a gift, and I like to try to share interesting game meats with people when I can. Because especially things like bear and cougar, like, you know, everybody's like, oh yeah, you're shooting a turkey, you're shooting a deer. You start getting into predators or omnivores like deer, or sorry, like bears, and people get kind of weird about it. Like, I feel like that's really hard to stomach for people, the thought of hunting predators, and it's also the easiest way to vilify hunting, to say that we're doing it just for the trophy. And if people get to taste the meat and realize that it's not just to say we, you know, we're not shooting them just to say we did, you know, we're shooting them as a resource, in addition to all these other more nuanced population issues. So yeah, share cougar with friends.
Yeah, and I will add that for anyone watching from other states, et cetera, that, you know, Oregon has a very healthy bear population, and we actually, with the right tags, can take up to 3 a year, which I know not every state can manage. And yeah, I love bear. I think it's one of my favorites. Kind of a continuation of that last question is someone asked, have you ever introduced someone into hunting?
I haven't. I really want to. But like I said, I really knew it myself. So I feel like I'm still trying to figure so many parts of hunting out. I don't know if I'm the best teacher for people, but that said, if somebody just needs like some company in the woods and wants to come and hang out, I'm pretty open to it. I've talked with a bunch of people about coming out with me. I feel like there's, like I said, there's like some mental block between like saying you want to do it and like actually coming out and, you know, potentially getting to see it happen. You know, a friend of mine was really excited about learning how to hunt, and then I invited him to come bear hunting with me, and he was like, well, not bear. So it's just everybody's got their comfort zone. It's just a matter of trying to, you know, I'm never pushy about trying to get people to come hunting. I like being out in the woods by myself too. But I really do feel like it's an important thing for all of us who care about the future of hunting to make it a comfortable place for everyone, to invite people out if we can, just try to make it accessible to people.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I bet that you know more than you think you know, quite honestly. That's usually how it functions. As long as you're trying to pass along the knowledge you've learned, that's all it takes. Oh, my buddy Brian asked what scotch we're drinking. Brian, I'm slumming it tonight with Lagavulin 16. I don't remember what Carla said she was drinking.
Just cheap Costco bourbon.
that still works. Sometimes it's okay just to like have something to the snake bite, so to speak.
Exactly.
So we have about 8 minutes left or 7 minutes left. So before there's any other questions that we want to kind of go over. I kind of wanted to ask you the hardball, even though it's not that hard, from this kind of overall thing is there anything that you hope people can get or take from this chat or from your experiences?
Gosh, I mean, I feel so new to hunting, and like it's like amazing to me that anybody even wants to hear me talk, because I feel like I know so little about it. But I really just hope that everybody who loves hunting and wants the future of hunting to be a possibility, just be really open-minded about what kind of hunters you can, or what kind of people can be hunters, because like honestly, if I can do it as a former vegan animal rights activist, I think more people than we think can become hunters, or at least become hunter-friendly. It's one of those things that it's such a small part of the population. If we can just expose people to like a friendly hunter or a good hunting experience, like I said, even if it's just the one time, if everybody could just like meet a hunter and have a good positive relationship with hunting, we would be in a much better position, you know, when things go on the ballot, when hunting becomes, you know, a legislative issue. The public support is really important, and I know that the people who don't love hunting are very proactive about trying to make people like it less and, you know, feel really strongly against it. So yeah, I feel like it's very important to keep people, to improve people's opinion about it overall.
Yeah, well said. And actually someone just chimed in, and I assume it's a woman. I can't quite tell from her photo. She says, "You inspire me to finally start as a woman." So I think that's awesome. So I hope that
Well, if there's anything I can do, and like I said, anything I can do to anybody to make this easier, just let me know.
Yeah, and definitely, you know, we're gonna post this on the Oregon BHA Instagram page through the Instagram TV. So we'll obviously have Carla's business Instagram page there, and you can get in contact with there. And I do want to mention again that while I posted it above, I know links don't work in the Instagram comments. So I encourage everyone to look up. If you Google just Carla Brauer TED Talk Salem, you'll find her, trust me. It's about 11 or 12 minutes long. It's not long. And then also for those that are just interested in that kind of topic conversation of maybe what people might consider opposing views, I really recommend you Googling, you know, Meat Eater or Stephen Ranella talks to vegan, because again, that was a really good chat where he really just kind of has a discussion. I do see a question here from John. He said, what are some things you see hunters doing that inadvertently make it uncomfortable for people to trying to get into hunting?
That's a really good question. I feel like there are always going to be gatekeepers to anything, meaning people who just kind of want it for themselves and they're not, you know, super welcoming. I feel like I've seen some Facebook threads and stuff where somebody is clearly new, doesn't know the unit, doesn't know anything, and people just kind of rip them a new one about not doing their research, and you just got to go out there and put boots on the ground. And like, yes and no, but like, you know, you do need to do the work. But we could make them feel like, you know, they've got some more resources to be helpful, because like I said, I came into hunting not knowing anything, and the people who reached out and helped me and were encouraging were really, really important. And if I was coming into hunting for the first time and asked for some help and people were like, figure it out yourself, you know, what's wrong with you? I would have a hard time with that. And also, I think just watching, you know, any kind of language in public from the hunting community that is racist or homophobic or transphobic. I've seen a lot of jokes that were made on forums that, you know, everybody's joking, and you know, maybe they don't really mean it, but the people who are the butt of those jokes, they're not going to speak up and want to be part of your community. So, you know, there's something to keep in mind. Like I said, we're all representatives of hunters, whether we like it or not. We're such a small part of the population. We just have to represent hunting well.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly valuable point, that because we are such a smaller amount of the population, that we represent that small amount in everything we do. And you're getting a lot of thumbs up and applauses over on the side here. So we've got about 1 or 2 minutes left. So I'm going to show Carla's skull off again, just because I like to brag about what I shot, plus what Carla, the work she does, which I think is just absolutely gorgeous. Again, in sunlight, it really shows the bronze better, but it's one of my favorite pieces. And
that was a really fun one to do.
Yeah, and I hope that everyone really found this inspirational and really enjoyed it. And and please look up Carla, look up that TED Talk, engage people in the conversation. Heck, send them to Oregon BHA's Instagram page to watch this, or to watch Carla's TED Talk. I think that those type of thing. Someone says I said skull, or someone said skull. That's hilarious. I think that might be your mom. Wait, is that your mom again? I don't remember. Yeah, I just I don't want to have us butting up against time, so I know we have about a minute left or so. Is there anything else you wanted to say or get across, Carla?
Gosh, I just think, well, like I said, hunter recruitment and making people comfortable in the hunting world is important to me. So if anybody ever wants to reach out with ideas, partnerships on ways we could make that better, I'm all ears and wanting to help. So get in touch.
And certainly I would say, and that's a good point, is if you ever need help with hunting or anything or knowledge like that, as Carla mentioned, you know, reach out to those who do it. Reach out to your local Backcountry Hunters and Anglers chapter. Reach out to the state, you know, Hunter Ed, because those are actually hunters. They're volunteers. They're not part of the state organization, so they're they're doing it out of love of what they do. And there's a lot of different groups in different types of hunting, be it hound hunting, etc. We have 26 seconds remaining. I see a clock. So I'm going to say this. Carla, thank you so much. Cheers, skulls, whatever you want to say.
Cheers.
I really
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and we appreciate you so much. And I will look forward to chatting with you soon and picking up my bear hide at some point.
Yeah. Have a good one. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. I'm going to hit